She walked into Parliament expecting a debate, but what she got was a political detonation over free speech itself. Section 18C in the firing line, accusations flying, words turning into weapons in real time. Because when Pauline Hanson stood up, she didn't just speak, she challenged the entire system she says is silencing Australia. Offense, insult, humiliation, or truth. That's the line everyone is now forced to walk. And then she said it. That racism isn't just a definition anymore. It's become a political trigger. What followed wasn't debate. It was a clash over who gets to speak and who gets shut down.
Australia was colonised and people came here. And since then, many migrants from around the world have sought Australia to make it their home. And they've come here to join us and to be one of us, and I welcome that. My first husband was actually Polish. He was a migrant after the Second World War who came to Australia for a new life with his mother. I've had involvement with people of all different cultural backgrounds. The manager of my shop, my fish and chip shop, was also a refugee from Laos. And I had the highest regard for her and we worked very well together. I had properties that I actually rented out to an Aboriginal lady and her child. My children grew up in the same street with Aboriginal children. My association with all different cultures has been one that I have cherished. My parents were people that welcomed anyone into their homes, and that's how I was taught. And I have respect for so many different cultures and the people. Respect is earned by the person, not purely based on who they are or their race. It must be earned.
What's your take on this heated exchange? Who made the strongest point? Drop your thoughts in the comments and join the conversation below.
Under this Act, and people say, well, why are we standing up here and speaking out against the words of to insult, offend, humiliate or intimidate? Today's day and times has changed greatly, and people have come to our country, and I remember most years ago when they came, there was the Greeks and the Italians and different ones. They were called wogs. They were actually, they kept telling me, they said, my God, we were actually had everything thrown at us. We were abused, but we said, no, we got on with it. Because when the Aussies had a go at them in that Aussie way, they then became part of the community. They assimilated. I remember all the guys at the fish markets, the Greeks and the Italians. We all had jokes together. And it was taken in the good sense of humour. I think we've lost that in Australia. I think people have become so precious that you can't say or do anything anymore. Otherwise you'll be dragged off to the law courts. And you talk about racism. Let's define the word racism. A racist is a person who believes their race to be superior to another. Understand the meaning. So when you criticise or you have a point of a difference, don't counteract that by saying it's a racist comment. And I'm fed up with people in this Parliament and even outside this House calling me a racist, yet they cannot define one word that I have ever said in policy or anything that is racist. Now, I remember years ago when I was first elected, I went to have a meeting with the Aboriginal elders.
She walked into Parliament ready for a debate. But what unfolded wasn't debate. It was a full-scale political detonation over free speech, race, and Section 18C. Because when Pauline Hanson stood up, she didn't just speak. She unleashed a direct challenge to the entire system she says is silencing Australians. And from the very first seconds, she made one thing clear. This wasn't about politics anymore. This was about control, language, and who gets to speak without consequences. Hanson immediately rejects the accusation framing in the chamber, insisting she has stood for equality from day one, regardless of race, background, or creed. And then she builds her argument through personal testimony, her Polish first husband, migrants she worked with, Aboriginal families in her community, and generations of multicultural relationships. But the tone shifts fast. because what starts as a defense of inclusion quickly turns into something much sharper. Hanson pivots from personal history to a cultural claim that Australia has changed, and not for the better in her view. She argues that what used to be open debate and humor has been replaced by fear. Fear of being accused, fear of being reported, fear of saying the wrong thing under laws like Section 18C, and then she delivers her central attack point. She questions whether the legal threshold for offend, insult, humiliate, or intimidate has gone too far, arguing that ordinary disagreement is now being rebranded as racism. In her framing, the word racist is no longer a definition, it has become a weapon. But the most explosive moment comes when she turns the accusation back onto the system itself. She claims Australians are being silenced while others are protected, and she calls it reverse racism, a claim that instantly escalates the temperature inside the chamber. Then she doubles down, bringing in examples from universities, social media disputes, and public complaints, arguing that Australians are increasingly unable to speak freely without legal or social consequences. And just when the debate seems locked in political theory, she brings it back to identity and culture, claiming that Australia is losing the ability to assimilate differences into a shared national identity. The chamber is no longer just listening to a speech. It is absorbing a worldview collision, because to critics, Hanson is challenging the very foundation of anti-discrimination law. But to supporters, she is saying something else entirely, that free speech in Australia has become conditional. And that is where the real divide appears. Not just over race, not just over history, but over one fundamental question: where does free speech end and harm begin? As the acting deputy president grants her continuation, Hanson closes with a final assertion: Australia must be able to debate, disagree, and speak openly again, or risk a society where silence replaces discussion. And with that, the chamber moves on. But the argument doesn't end there, because this wasn't just another parliamentary speech. It was a direct challenge to Section 18C, and a reminder that in Australia's political battlefield, free speech is still one of the most explosive issues of all.